So, about 30 days ago, I got rid of everything I own. Now, in this video, I want to talk about the effect that's had on me, not why I necessarily did it. That's explained in other videos. They'll be linked below this video and all those points. I want to explain more so the effect it had and how it's kind of changed my life the past 30 days. And a lot of people on the channel have asked questions about how it's made me feel, whether you should do it yourself, which I don't actually suggest for a lot of people, and what it's done for me. Has it made me happier? Has it made me more effective? What's going on here? So that's what I'm going to cover in this video because I think it'll be really useful to you guys. Really quick cliff notes. I had a multi-million-dollar giant home. I had a car worth $400,000. The house was full of art. I'd fly private everywhere. I'd do all sorts of stuff. If you stuffed all this on an Instagram page, pretty much the definition of success by society standards. Why did I do it? Well, essentially what I noticed is, hey, I got this giant house, I got this giant car, and none of this is really making me happy. So what the fuck am I actually doing here? What's the goal here? Because if I'm not happy with this house, if I'm not happy with this car, if I'm not happy with all the other things that come with being wealthy and successful by society's standards, what on earth do I have to look forward to? Why am I even doing anything at all? And so my theory was, hey, maybe if I just go and get rid of all this stuff and focus on the stuff that actually makes me happy and maximize that and minimize everything in my life that, well, doesn't have to do with me being happy, I think I'll be a lot happier. I think I'll be able to be a lot more effective in what I'm doing. So was it true or not? Let's discuss. What I want to talk about in this video is really mostly over the 30 days, I've discovered this is a super double-sided sword. It can cut one way to be super beneficial for your life. It can also cut the other way and be extremely painful. And the cool thing about it is it puts you in pain. It locks you in pain and forces you for the first time in your life to say, who the heck am I and what do I want to do? Because we're not really ever allowed in our lives to define ourselves by who we are and what we want to do. This is going to be a woke video, and there are not going to be many jokes in this video. Woke, okay? A few people who watch these videos, I'm using woke sarcastically. But let me explain it like this. When you start a business or you start making a substantial amount of money, the first thing you do is you look at what other people are making other substantial amounts of money do, especially the people that are ahead of you. And regardless of who you talk to, you're going to see two types of people, and they're both operating completely around fear, and they're operating completely around this game that we're all think we have to play. It's like when you go and look at the two types of people you're going to run into, you're going to see the people that are the financial minimalist who are save, invest, and you're going to see the people that are financially excessive, which are make as much money, tons of money, get tons of stuff. And it's all based around acquiring money to be able to sustain some type of lifestyle or sustain your life. And when you get into entrepreneurship, you're actually going to reach the point where you can sustain your life very quickly. Once you get a set of skills and you become good at what you're doing, you're going to reach a point where you can sustain your life pretty quickly. In fact, even if you have a job where you're working for other people, you can reach a point where you can sustain your life pretty easily without either end of this spectrum. And so what's weird is we don't get to the point where we actually feel good. We don't get to the point where we actually feel satisfied because the point of the game isn't to be satisfied. The point of the game is like it's like you loaded up World of Warcraft, and the point of the game is there's a scoreboard that you're constantly running towards. And the goal is to be the best at it, to keep growing that scoreboard and keep it going and acquire more gear and create a higher level character and get more powerful. But the weird thing that happens when you go minimalistic, and I'm not talking about financial minimalism, which is it's just another form of gain. It's another form of not trying to lose your lifestyle or build up a lifestyle through something. What I mean by minimalism is just getting what you need and being good with it and identifying all the things you need and just removing everything else. And when you get to that point, the scoreboard of the game, it's like it maxes out. I don't like to say that you've won the game, but there's no points you can score in the game anymore. And so you're left in this game where nothing you do affects the scoreboard. And so you have to kind of figure out, well, what's the point of playing the game? What's the point of doing this? And when you are a hardworking business person, the way you kind of cope through life, everybody's coping in life one way or another. Because I'm not doing this in a sad, depressing way. I'm just saying life is suffering. existing is suffering. If you don't believe me, go sit in a room by yourself. Unless you have monk level tolerances of boredom, you're going to suffer. It's going to be very painful. And so because life is suffering, people cope in various ways. They take drugs, they drink, they get obsessed with certain hierarchies of people. That if you look at Instagram, everyone's competing with each other and playing this game. And they find a place for themselves to focus their energy at that gives them a distraction, for lack of better words. And if you're an entrepreneur, the way you cope is by making more and more money and mastering money more and more. But then when the point of mastering money just kind of vanishes, you're like, so what's the point of playing this game anymore? And it's a scary moment because suddenly you have to figure out, well, what in this game would I like to do regardless of points? What is most important to me? And because you've probably spent most of your life chasing after things that have nothing to really do with you, it's because you saw so-and-so behaving that way, or everybody is looking and focusing or telling you this thing is important, you're kind of left this big old void. And you're like, well, what now? What do I do? And so that's very painful because you're stuck now in a big old empty room. You can go and keep diddling on the same things you used to diddle. That sounds gross. But you can go and keep doing all the same things you used to do. But the scoreboard that forced you to used to do those things no longer is there. And so you're suddenly stuck with yourself. And you're thinking, well, what now? Now, the downside of that is that's very scary. You're just floating around in space at this point with no way to cope, for lack of better words. But what is also really cool is that leaves you, if you fall into it, in a really cool spot because you can finally just think, what is most exciting to me? If there's no scoreboard, if I'm just good, like I'm just good, I don't need anything else. There's no reason for me to make another $1 million. I'm just good. And my businesses still do very well, and so I'm sustained as well. But even without the businesses, I'm still good for a very, very long time. So I'm like, well, what do you do? And you really have to go and sit down and say, well, what would make me happy? What type of work do I want to do? And so that's just something I wanted to point out. You end up in this kind of void where the scoreboard doesn't exist anymore. And it's very strange because most entrepreneurs, whether you look at them on the excessive realm or you look at them in the super minimalistic, financial minimalistic, none of them are cool with the amount of money that they have. You know, and that's something for most of my life. I was never cool with the amount of money I have. I'd always look at my bank account and say, how can we double that? How can we triple that? If you 100x my bank account right now, I don't know what the fuck I do with it. I just don't. There's nothing for me to do with it. I don't want a bigger house. I don't want 16 cars. I don't want to go through the, oh, great, we just made a ton of money, so let's get a house in NYC and in here and then fill it with 16 cars. And we have to get a jet now. Like, it's just so much crap that I realize if I'm living in the current lifestyle I was before and that wasn't making me happy, 10xing that is not going to make me happy. And so the weirdest thing happened. I had to just look at my bank account and go, this is good. I'm fine. There's just nothing to do. And so that's a really weird thing as well. Because most entrepreneurs define themselves by that thing going up and down and up and down. And if there's nothing to really use those points for, you don't really have to define yourself by them. So what projects do you pursue? Because you used to always define yourself and the project you pursue at least by the financial goals a little bit. Why am I investing in X? Why am I researching this? Why am I learning how to develop this skill? Oh, so I can make that number go up and down. But when the number is just covered, and any amount of time you put into any work that increases that number is just kind of pointless to you, you have to figure out what work do you want to do. Because I for one, can't sit around and just do nothing. I would just resort to binge drinking and eating cake. It'd be unbearable. So you have to think, what type of work do I want to do? What's the thing that makes you happiest? And so you kind of are left having to invent your own game. You know? Everybody's locked in this game of financial success or appearing successful or building a business to be successful and make more money and build this thing or that thing. Keeping up the Joneses, for lack of better words, or keeping up with the Kardashians. And you're kind of like, okay, that's all great, but like I'm not playing that game anymore. Does anybody want, like, you don't have any game left to play. And so you get to invent your own rules, you get to invent kind of your own reality and what's kind of important to you. And that's a bizarre thing because if the rules aren't established for you, you're kind of left in this point where you're just not playing any game at all. You're just in this big old void, which is, I don't want to say made worse, but definitely magnified by the fact that you have such excessive amounts of time. Because the way I live now takes no maintenance. I don't have to talk to anybody. My rent is paid off for a very, very long time. And with my prior home, with all the other things, when you're constantly adding and adding and adding stuff into your life is constantly becoming more boggled down with all these things that really have nothing to do with you. So you're not able to really figure out anything that has to do with you. And now when all these things are gone, it's just, hey, who am I and what do I want to do? And you can't really escape that. What most people do when they feel that is they'll go buy more things. So they'll go get drunk, or they'll go work more, or they'll go do something, and their life gets really, really full. But when you remove all the things, your life becomes very, very empty to some point. Not like a lonely, sad emptiness, like a excessive amount of time emptiness. So I'll get done working for 12 hours, and what I would usually have to spend dealing with nonsense, it's now kind of like, hey, how do you want to spend this time? And for a few weeks, I would stand around like, I have absolutely no fucking clue. I have absolutely no clue what I want to do right now. So, and don't get me wrong, I'm still working on my businesses. If you want to see how I'm doing that, you can literally see how I grew one of my businesses on YouTube ads past 8 figures. Again, this is only for business owners, people that are already doing at least 100,000 per year. But if you want more like technical business training, you can check that out below. And so I'm still doing all those things. You just have to keep in mind. What then happens is, because living is essentially suffering, your body is going to start to try and cope. And it's a very weird thing to watch, because a lot of bad habits you used to have start cropping up a whole lot more. Because when you're sitting in those moments of your life where you're very bored, there's nothing going on, and you don't have anywhere to put your attention, it becomes painful. And so you start thinking, well, do I go pick up video games? Do I go pick up drinking? Should I go get a bunch of Halo Top ice creams from the store? And you start recognizing all these coping mechanisms. You also start recognizing all these coping mechanisms you used to go through on social media and whatnot. And you can almost feel yourself feeling the urge to play the stupid game you see on the internet a lot of times. And so what you have to actually do is sit down and think about, where can I divert this focus to? What things can I do that are healthy, beneficial, and bring joy into my life that are not there at present? And so you really have to sit down and think about those things, and you start having to think about how you can cope in a way that's actually fun for you. And the old ways you used to be able to cope, which is focusing on business or being more financially successful than the next guy, or being a money master or something like that, those are no longer places you can cope in. They're irrelevant to you. So you have to completely fill the void with something else. And that period where you're filling the void is kind of weird. And so that's overall what I've noticed. What going and living like this does is it completely denumbs you. You're just there, and there's nowhere for you to run. There's nothing to take up your time. There's no bullshit to be striving towards. It's like you had this game, like I said before, where, oh crap, I realized that my old house. All right, so where do I go from here? Do I buy another house? Do I get 3 more cars? Do I try and buy a jet? This stuff is already driving me insane. Where do I go from here? And so you suddenly get back to this point where you have nowhere to go. You have absolutely nowhere to go. That's very cool, because it allows you a ton of focus, insane amounts of focus. There's nothing for me to focus on in this place. I just walk out and like, this is it. And so what then happened is then you're left in another void, because you have an excessive amount of time to say, well, what do I want to focus on? Because there's all these things you can focus on, but because you're just good with your financials, you don't have to focus on them. Because you realize that a lot of the reason why you would focus on certain things is out of fear. People that are trying to be financially successful, especially ones that are really successful, past $1 million net worth, the only thing they're doing is operating out of fear at one point. You know, like what do you need more of? Like what are we trying to fix here? What are we trying to get more of? Now, I'm not saying don't make money, but you just kind of stop operating completely out of fear. And when you stop operating out of fear, or sustaining something, or sustaining it, whether it's excess or saving so you can have excess in the future, I don't know. You start being able to just say, well, what would be fun for me? And so you can just work on parts of your business that are fun, and you no longer are so much focused on profit margin or making as much money. You just want to build something cool. That's what you have left to do. Just build cool shit that you have fun building with cool people. That's literally all you have left. And then you can actually just devote yourself entirely to that, and that makes you a really strong, focused person, because, well, you don't have to worry about anything. It doesn't even matter if it works or not. If it works or it doesn't, it's irrelevant. Because again, the game's already maxed out. Like there's nothing for me to win and nothing for me really to lose. I mean, as long as I'm not saying be financially irresponsible, but I mean, there's just nothing for you to gain or nothing for you to lose. It's just fun to be had. But that takes a lot of focus to do. It takes a lot of retraining your brain. It takes a lot of you going and looking at your rule book for life that you've set up and your belief systems and saying these things are just completely irrelevant. A lot of the things I used to value, a lot of things I used to think are cool, a lot of the things that I did, they had nothing to do with me. They were just completely fear-based coping mechanisms. And when you stop coping with those things, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering, and so a lot of other coping mechanisms are going to pop up in your life. There's going to be all sorts of the bad habits, and then they're really going to start pinging up to you because they can't hide under anything. They can't hide under the level of normalness that society will put on you. So when you look at certain things and you look at how people behave and you look at how, you've interacted with friendships and certain things in the past, you start going and saying, am I doing this for something that actually brings me joy, or am I keeping these things in my life out of fear and coping? And so you get left in a really weird Twilight Zone kind of place. And so that's what I've really noticed in the past 30 days. There's all the obvious stuff, like it's easier to clean my house and I don't have to worry about as many AC units. But when it comes to the more effect on my brain, that's what's happened. And I think it's really cool. And I think it's also pretty scary at the same time. So I just wanted to share that with you if you've been thinking about doing it. I don't think this is for everybody. And I don't think I'll stick like this my entire life. And then on a final note, people keep asking, like, am I having a mental breakdown or has something gone catastrophically wrong in my mind? And it's just such a weird question to me because I don't really see that big of a shift between having a lot of stuff and not having a lot of stuff. This stuff has nothing really to do with me. And so it's not particularly painful. There hasn't been a huge loss of identity because I guess to get rid of that stuff in the first place, I had to kind of drop that. And I don't think I'm some woke monk or something like that. I just think that a lot of people are placing way more importance on these things, not because they're materialistic or self-absorbed or weak-minded. I don't know anything negative. I think it's just because people told you these things are supposed to be important. They told you this is how you play this the scoreboard, but the scoreboard doesn't really exist. So you could just sit around and if you're playing World of Warcraft and the scoreboard is your level, the scoreboard is where you're going to, you got to realize that you don't even have to play that. It doesn't matter whether you're level 20 or level 60. If you enjoy running around shooting fireballs at goblins, just do that. Because if you're not doing what you find fun and what you find meaningful and you're working towards a scoreboard, you're going to spend your entire life working on this thing that was completely fear-based. And when you're completely fear-based, when you're constantly trying to get to this next level or get to this next thing, instead of focusing on just building great things and doing things for the sake of doing things, you're not going to do the things that you really are ever going to be good at, that you're really going to find joy in, that you're really going to just absolutely love. And that's just weird. That's just weird. You just end up stuck in things for this game that isn't going to get you anything. There's no prize at the end of the keeping up with the Joneses game. There's no prize in having a lot of money or a little bit of money. There's no prize in saving your money and being king of the investors, and there's no prize in having the most jets and things. Both of these things become financial. I don't even know. That did just wreck your brain because you're constantly thinking about how many pennies you can save over here and how much you can minimalize and do things over here to optimize around this goal that's, again, pointless. And then if you're over here, you're just adding crap into your life around this goal that's pointless. And so you're just wasting your life. And that's really all there is to it. I understand a lot of you guys coming from business training, but I just wanted to lay this out for you as well. If you do want like a specific business training, how I've grown my businesses, actually I'm scaling all my businesses with YouTube ads and Google ads primarily right now. That's right below the video. You can check that out. Again, that's only for businesses that are doing at least $100,000 a year for it. It's not for beginners. And that's it. Be sure to subscribe because every single Sunday we're going to be going and doing a live stream. You won't see that if you don't subscribe. Hit the notification bell and the like button. So it's going to tell YouTube, show me what this guy does. And that's it. Let me know your feedback below.